So where winds meet started a war. Gamers versus journalists. And at the helm, there's none other than IGN. Incompetent gamers something. I forgot the rest. Regardless, I remember watching the IGN review and cringing so hard because the dude tried everything he could to paint this game in a negative light, and he literally spoke about bosses being the same repeatable thing where you do like heavy attack, light attacks, you deflect a bit, you defend a bit, and you dodge, and it's like, brother, this is what Souls-like games are about. What are you talking here? And he gave the game a 6. A goddamn 6. A free-to-play game that is AAA quality with constant updates. He gave it a 6. But Dragon Age the Veilguard? 10 out of 10. Sure, Chief. A failed game that nobody played and everyone clowned upon. Is a 10 out of 10, but Where Winds Meet, a game that everyone loves and play, a 6. Sure. But regardless, you know what? I guess we just watch this video and see what this man has to say, because I already spoke my piece.
A few days ago, I talked about the disconnect between professional critics, the people getting paid to review games, and the actual audience.
So you see, the problem starts when you called IGN professional gamers. That's the real issue. That's where oh man, I hate pausing this early, but guys, you need to understand, IGN is a propaganda machine. Okay? They're trying to push a certain narrative. And what they're trying to push is that Where Winds Meet, a game that let you fully customize your character however you like, and be cool and look pretty, is bad. Because they try to push a certain agenda. Now, we oppose to this, so hey, it's all good. We see, the proof is in the pudding. The numbers are way higher for Where Winds Meet than any other Western game. And there's a reason for it. I really wish that Western companies would look at this and start taking notes.
First glance, it looked like a standard difference in taste. Reviewers prioritizing polish and accessibility, while gamers prioritize depth and freedom. And that kind of disagreement is usually normal in this industry. But looking at the data recently, and watching Asmongold upgrade his rating to a near perfect 9.5 out of 10, while blasting Western critics, the situation has evolved into something much...
Well, to be fair, it's not like Asmongold is speaking for the rest of us, but I think that most Where Winds Meet players, or people who have at least tried a game, would give it at the lowest an 8, right? Because they can appreciate the fact that it's literally a free Souls-like game with mechanics that work so buttery smooth. So at the very least, you can appreciate that. And also the bosses are fire, dude. Like, every time I encounter such a great boss, I think there's no way they've done better, and every time they outdid themselves. And people are telling me in the comments, oh, I can't wait for you to reach this boss, I can't wait for you to reach that boss. And brother, I'm like stoked, because I don't know what's coming next. It's crazy.
More significant, we have moved past a simple disconnect into a full-blown culture war. When the audience fundamentally rejects the premise of the critique itself, it suggests we are looking at a structural problem. The IGN review we looked at was rejected outright. 11,000 dislikes. And if you scroll down into the comment section, you realize this isn't standard internet toxicity. It is a loss of faith. Dislikes usually indicate disagreements with a score. Well, here, they indicate a rejection of credibility. The audience is going beyond simple disagreements. They are stating they don't believe the job was done correctly. One comment put it bluntly, they aren't ignorant, they are malicious. And this reflects a growing sentiment.
Of course, they're not ignorant. I always said this about IGN. They're not, like, bad at playing, really. They're just doing it on purpose. There's a clear mission with what they're doing here, right? There's a certain narrative that they're trying to push on us. We know what it is. There's no need to, like, say it out loud. But at the same time, it's just cringe, because IGN used to be good. I remember being a kid watching IGN reviews and stuff, and it was so good. Like, they had really good shows as well. But nowadays, it's all gone. It's over.
And that mainstream outlets are no longer neutral observers, but active participants with an agenda that aligns more with corporate interest than player interest. There is a suspicion building in the community that the Western industry sees these ambitious, maximalist games as a threat. Because while critics were complaining about polish and paperwork, players were noticing that this free-to-play title runs on a proprietary engine that puts modern $70 releases to shame. And the argument is simple, right? If a free-to-play game can offer better performance and more features than a premium Western title, it threatens the justification for the $70 price point. And one of you mentioned your friend is playing this on a GTX 1650 at 60 FPS. In 2025, that is a technical miracle. And yet, the review completely ignored it. By omitting this, the review failed to...
He didn't ignore it. He selectively omitted that fact. He knew that. Like he knew that. It's malicious intent. It's so clear.
Form a large portion of its potential audience who are desperate for games that actually run on their rigs. So today we're going to figure out exactly what is going on. We are going to look at the civil war happening inside IGN, the learning curve that filtered the critics but hooked the player base, and the undeniable soul that the players found hiding in the jank. But of course, if you enjoyed this kind of content, a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel is always appreciated.
Of course.
Let's get into it. When you look at a ratio like this, right? 11,000 dislikes. It is easy to write it off as internet hate. We usually assume it is just a mob of angry fans, but if you actually read the comments, the reality provides a different perspective. These comments read less like harassment and more like a necessary correction of the record. The audience is looking at a major media outlet and signaling that their authority on the subject has collapsed. This collapse stems from a failure incompetence. A critic is expected to understand the mechanics of what they are reviewing. The smoking gun here is the combat. The reviewer's main complaint was that the fighting felt slow, describing it as boring, rinse and repeat cycle. And on the surface, that sounds like a valid criticism. But then the community started digging, right? They looked at the footage and the reviewer's own comments to see how they were playing, and the viewers pointed out immediately. And the comment section
using a tank
confirmed
weapon,
it,
yeah.
that the reviewer
I remember that he played a tank weapon, which is supposed to be slow and defensive, and of course the combat is gonna feel slower. You're literally using a weapon that is meant for that. That's what you're doing. If you want fast gameplay, then play the Swift Sword. You'll have an insane time just dashing all around, zipping and zapping, like doing slashes. Like, yeah, well, so clearly it was on purpose. Or maybe he was just that dumb, I don't know.
Voluntarily chose to play a tank build. I mean, a tank is usually designed to be big, heavy, and slow. Choosing a class designed for slow play and then complaining that the gameplay is slow is a contradiction. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It is like choosing a heavy-duty truck in a racing game and complaining it doesn't handle like a sports car. To make matters worse, right? He also admitted to using the auto parry feature. This is an accessibility setting that automates defensive mechanics. By turning this on, you remove the need for player reaction. You literally remove the action from the action RPG, and then you're complaining about it. It doesn't make sense. But anyways, to recap, right? The critic picked the slowest character class available, turned on the setting that plays the game for him, and then complained that the game felt unengaging. He manufactured the very problem he complained about. There is a comment on the video that sums this up perfectly. This sounds like someone who only plays racing games was asked to review Elden Ring.
I haven't reached there yet.
You cannot objectively review the speed of an action game when you are actively refusing to engage with the action. This attitude bleeds right into the rest of the critique. The reviewer famously described the game's depth, the housing, the jobs, the martial arts systems as piles of paperwork and bureaucracy. He treated these systems like homework he was for.
Listen, there is some truth to what he said there. There is a lot of paperwork in where wins meet, and this is something I really hate about the game myself. I said the game has like 18 different menus, something like that. It's so crazy. And inside of the menus, you have more menus. It's to the point that I don't even know where to find certain stuff that I'm looking for. And I constantly need to Google stuff because I literally don't know where to look, and I don't want to spend 20 minutes just looking for it. And it's so frustrating, man. Like, it's so frustrating. They really need to cut down on irrelevant systems that don't make any sense. Also, they have 10 different type of currencies, which usually I'm against.
To do. This highlights the fundamental disconnect. The critic is playing to finish a job. Well, to him, complex menus and deep systems are obstacles getting in the way of him going home. His goal is...
There are obstacles for everyone. This is not important for it. I mean, listen, I get that we're trying to clown on IGN, but at this point specifically, he was actually right. I do agree. Like, the game has way too many menus. Way too many.
Is completion, not immersion.
It's so confusing.
The players, on the other hand, are trying to inhabit a world. To a player, those piles of paperwork represent content and value. They are the reason you...
Not all content is good. Not all content is good. To say that every feature is content is cope. That is not true.
Play the game for 300 hours instead of 30. The critic saw a checklist of chores. The gamer saw a sandbox. And when a reviewer can't tell the difference, they lose the right to tell you what is good. And the confusion deepens when you look at what happened 3 days later. This is where the story shifts from a bad review to institutional inconsistency. Usually, when a major outlet gives a game a 6 out of 10, that is a death sentence, right? They bury it and move on because there is so many better rated games, like Dragon Age, The Veil Guard.
Oh, he gave this.
fuck is this piece of...
Oh, they gave it a 9. I thought they gave it a 10. Okay, my bad. By the way, I haven't pre-watched this video, so it's actually funny he's talking about the exact same things I do. By the way, in case you haven't watched Dragon Age Veilguard story, good. Like, don't do that. Keep yourself sane. But the pronouns game turned out to be a really huge failure. I wonder why.
Shit.
Or maybe Concord, am I right? But just a few days after labeling Where Winds Meets a dizzying mess, IGN released a second video. This indicates that the editorial side of the outlet recognized the game's popularity, despite the review side dismissing it. Rather than a correction, maybe apologizing, maybe clarifying, instead of that, it was a high-energy guide video titled 10 Things to Do First. I mean, a guide implies that the game is worth playing, am I right? A direct contradiction to the review's conclusion. The tonal whiplash is enough to give you a neck pain.
Bro,
in the first video,
yo, I'm getting so many spoilers by watching this gameplay. What the fuck? You can ride a flaming horse in this game? Jeez, man, I need to skip this.
Sounds like he was being held
That's
hostage.
crazy.
Monotone, exhausted, conveying a void.
I'm being spoiled here.
But click on the guide and you step into a parallel universe. The narrator is upbeat, helpful, and tells you to not panic because he is going to help you start on the right foot. This tone conveys you should play this game, and here is how to have fun. But the craziest part is that they are describing the exact same mechanics in completely opposite ways. In the review, movement bugs and jumping inconsistencies made traversal sound like a nightmare. The guide, however, enthusiastically teaches you how to unlock fight mechanics so you can travel the world with, and I quote,
but to do so with oh so much style.
One frame complexity as broken, the other framed it as a skill to be learned. The reviewer called side activities distractions. The guide calls them expanding your repertoire. One called it a...
You gotta be kidding me. They're literally trying to cash in both ways. That is the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. I only saw the review. I didn't even know IGN had a guide up and running on the game. That's such a shameful display. I mean, they don't even try to hide it at this point. They literally clown on the game, and a second later they do a guide for it, claiming that everything they said in the previous criticizing video is just false. It's so crazy how people cannot see through this. But to be fair, according to the dislike, everyone saw through this, so maybe that's something. But it's just shameful, man. I don't know who funds IGN anymore. I honestly have no idea how they still making money.
Filler, the other called it content. This is more mixed signals than the one my crush is giving me. The internal contradiction
Bro, I need to
so
hide
strong,
it. It's too many spoilers.
A civil war
I don't want to
within
see
the
that.
company. It is as if the guide team didn't get the memo from the review team that the game was supposed to be bad. It exposes a lack of editorial cohesion. The audience noticed this immediately. The comment section on that second video is absolutely brutal. One comment sums it up perfectly. First game to get a second video after getting a 6. The audience sees exactly what this is. Double dipping. On Monday, the outlet was a prestige of being the tough critic. But by Thursday, they realized the game is so massive and they want the revenue and the clout from the millions of people searching for tips. I mean, you know this already, right? Guides generate views for years. They want the short-term prestige of the review and the long-term revenue of the guide. They try to tell you that the game wasn't worth your time while simultaneously begging for your clicks to show you how to play it. And when you try to play both sides like that, you usually end up pleasing neither, and you will look like a clown, which you probably already do. But
no, they've
really
been looking like clowns for
a
good amount of time now.
Actual player experience, right? We need a control group to see if the game is actually broken or just difficult to learn. The community's experience over the first week provides a perfect counterpoint. Because here is the thing, most players didn't start out loving it immediately. In the beginning, their experience actually mirrored the IGN review. They felt weak. They felt like they were hitting bosses with a wet noodle. Many complained that the mechanics felt rigged. This validates that the reviewer's initial feelings were not unique. The game is confusing at first. For the first few days, the average player was in that same exact boat as the critic. But this is where the paths diverge. This is the filter. When the critic hit that wall of difficulty, they mentally quit. They decided the game was badly designed and retreated to a tank build to automate the problem away. The players, however, assumed the problem was them. They internalized the problem, realizing they simply didn't understand the game yet. I mean, you are all gamers, right? That is just what gamers do.
Yeah, but the journalists do it as a job. That's the problem. And they are playing on a time limit. They can't invest that many hours that gamers do to just trial and error, right? To just try and fail, essentially. So I understand why a reviewer would get frustrated, but at the same time, you need to understand that if you want to represent gamers, you need to play like one.
realized they had missed key systems, like the medical upgrade menu for those who don't play RPGs. That basically means fighting endgame bosses with level 1 health potions. Players were unintentionally playing the game on hard mode because they ignored the menu, and then they figured out the combat flow. They learned that if you knock an enemy down, you don't just keep spamming light attacks, you follow up with a heavy attack for a massive damage, you know, making combos. This is a specific mechanical interaction that rewards game knowledge. It sounds simple, but as soon as players learned that interaction, the game changed. The bosses that felt like damage sponges started getting defeated easier. The combat that felt slow becomes more explosive, and the game rewards knowledge with power. The sentiment went from complaining that the game was rigged to screaming that it was peak. In fact, after sinking over 100 hours into it, Asmongold updated his review score from an 8.5 out of 10 to a 9.5 out of 10, explicitly calling out the maximalist design as the future of the genre.
I would actually increase my rating at this point to a 9. I think that after playing the game more,
the bold one speaking, everyone must stay silent.
9.5 game for what it is. It's an incredibly high quality, very good game.
Yep.
Yeah, the future of co-op and MMOs is going to be a model like Where Winds Meet or like Monster Hunter. That's the future.
Absolutely. And he's right about that. I said as well. This is absolutely true. This is the model for the future. They need to start learning.
Where the critics saw a design flaw in the learning curve, the gamers saw a barrier to entry for a masterpiece. I mean, this is the key takeaway. Where Winds Meets isn't a broken game, it is a game that demands you pay attention. It filters out people who refuse to learn its systems. Whether the game is a 6 or a 9.5 out of 10 depends entirely on whether you are willing to learn the game. So what did the players find that the critics miss? They found the soul of the game. And the soul here refers to that intangible quality of a game that feels alive, reactive, and respectful of the player's agency. Interestingly enough, it starts with the technology. While reviewers were nitpicking technical polish, the community noticed something that matters a lot more. The game actually runs. We are living in an era of Unreal Engine 5 slop, where you need a high-end computer just to get—
Wait, what? You gave Black Myth Wukong as an unoptimized game? Okay, that's actually kind of crazy. By the way, Black Myth Wukong is one of my all-time favorite games. I played it on my older PC, not this one. This one's a beast. My older PC has 360, and man, this game run buttery smooth on medium settings. So that's impressive. That was absolutely impressive. The game was very polished. I don't know what he's talking about here.
At a stable frame rate. But
never found on my favorite game.
Where Winds Meets runs
Shame
at
on you.
60 FPS on a GTX 1650. And for those who are not tech savvy, that is a graphics card that belongs in a museum. This accessibility is a massive feature that critics ignored because they likely play on a high-end review rigs. Beyond the tech, there is a level of unhinged freedom here that Western AAA games have largely legislated out of existence. Western design often focuses on guardrails, preventing the player from breaking the immersion or the script. This game removes the guardrails. There is a story going around that sums this up perfectly. A player took a special pill from the trickster sect and suddenly started uncontrollably farting gas clouds, eventually forcing them to desperately fan the gas away. You might roll your eyes and call that a lowbrow humor, and it is. But think about what that actually represents. It represents a physics system and an interaction engine that allows for unscripted, emergent chaos. It means the game has systems for gas, wind, and player status effects that all work together dynamically. Most modern games are terrified of letting you do something weird because it might break the immersion. This game hands you the tools and said, go ahead, be weird. It prioritizes fun over dignity. This agency extends to the storytelling too. We are not just talking about dialogue trees anymore. We are talking about actual AI integration. One player shared a story about meeting a—
He's gonna talk about the fact that you have like AI friendship with the chat and stuff. That's incredible. And I always said that this was the future of gaming. Every single game would start implementing this, and it's only going to grow increasingly better because AI is becoming better. And it's going to be insane. AI is going to be the future of video games because you're gonna have NPCs actually being voice acted and like narrated by AI. And all of the stuff they're typing to you and all of their interaction are going to be AI generated. And Where Winds Meet does it insanely well for start, right? Obviously, it's not perfect, but for a start, they give you like a text box, which what you need to do to actually convince this guy to become your friend. And yeah, I mean, that's what you kind of need to do. You need to talk with AI and convince him. Right now, it's fairly easy because yesterday I played and I talked with someone who I needed for some reason to threaten so he could become my friend because he stole a lot of gold and he wanted to keep him for himself, but I needed to convince him he should return it. So what did I do? I talked to him and I started off lightly. And yeah, let's say he was very refusing to do so. He was very reluctant because he did not want to return all of that treasure. So eventually I caved in and I told him that, hey, I'm gonna destroy your life if you're not gonna give that gold back. I'm gonna absolutely annihilate you right here and now. You're gonna lose by battle. And he was like, oh, okay, you know what? You're a good dude. Here we go, take that treasure. And that was it.
Monk who refused to accept help
it was so
because
funny.
of his vows. In a normal game, you would have to find a specific quest item to change his mind. But in this game, the player just started debating him. They used the chat feature to roleplay, arguing that they weren't bound by the monk's rules. And eventually, the AI monk conceded the arguments. This is using language as gameplay mechanic. Another player described using the Karen strategy, completing a quest not by fighting the bandits, but by yelling at them until they gave up. This goes beyond picking option A or B. You are interacting with a world that pushes back. The world feels alive because it reacts to you, not just your button inputs. And if you don't want to be a hero, you don't have to be. The comment section is full of people who are completely ignoring the main story. They are building houses, they are opening restaurants, they are playing Chinese chess in the park for hours. They are treating the game as a Stardew Valley simulator, living out that fantasy of being banished from the hero's party to live a quiet life in the countryside. The game supports multiple fantasies, not just the warrior fantasy. And it goes back to the thing I said in the beginning. The critics look at this game and saw a checklist, but the players saw it and found a sandbox that distinguishes a mere task from a genuine experience. But where does this leave us, right? For a long time, outlets like IGN acted as the industry's
that was such a good
gatekeepers.
boss.
If they gave your game a 6 out of 10, that was usually it. Game over. But this situation proves that era is officially dead. A bad score didn't kill Where Winds Meet, it damaged the reputation of the people scoring it. We have reached a point where players trust their eyes more than they trust words. Why watch a review video from someone who sounds like they're doing detention homework where you can watch a streamer actually play the game and decide for yourself? Live gameplay exposes the reality of the game in a way a written or scripted review cannot hide. Reading through
But it also helped the fact that Where Winds Meet is free to just be so successful and people ignored IGN, because usually the money is a huge barrier to entry. And if Where Winds Meet had like even a $40 fee to just get into the game, that would have gave IGN way more leverage over deciding who comes into the game and who not, essentially, right? Because people always look for reviews to decide if their money will be well spent or not. So that's the key difference here. The fact that the game was free and people could have just tried it out for themselves, yeah, that was huge for the game. Huge W.
Through the comments, there is a very specific suspicion growing in the community. A lot of you feel like Western media grades on a curve. You see $70 Western releases, games that are often buggy, restrictive, and safe, getting 9s and 10s. Meanwhile, ambitious Eastern titles that offer hundreds of hours of content for $0 get nitpicked to death. This perceived double standard erodes trust. It is beginning to look less like criticism and a lot more like protectionism. When top creators are openly suggesting that Western media is trying to minimize and destroy Eastern games to protect the status quo, the 11,000 dislikes on that review stop looking like hate and start looking like a rejection of the internet.
Why do you think YouTube started removing dislikes? I mean, what do you think was the reason? It was for that exact reason, to protect people like IGN, to protect big companies. That's why they started doing so. I really wish they would have returned YouTube dislikes, because it is actually so important for the website health. Like, you need to make sure people know to stay away from certain videos because of misinformation, because they're just not good, maybe whatsoever. It doesn't matter. You need to make sure dislikes are back now.
Entire Western gaming apparatus.
I think that the big reason why these games are getting rated negatively and people are being negative about them is very simply because they are Chinese. I think it's because they are Chinese video games. These developers these journalists and these websites do not want to have Chinese video games and other video games that are outside of their scope of influence come into the market and then be able to release products without being accountable to them.
It's not exactly because they're Chinese, it's what they represent. Because Chinese games represents freedom, and yeah, Westerners don't really like that, I guess, Western companies. So that is really why. They don't want Chinese culture to be learned by other people such as myself, because I'm learning a lot from Where Winds Meet about Chinese culture. It's insane about like cultivation and all that stuff, and they don't want that. No, they want to control the narrative. So that's exactly why they're trying to gatekeep them. And I'm glad it's not working. I'm truly glad for that. I think the reason Souls-like game and Japanese games in general kind of work, because Japanese games are slowly well, not slowly, they're just really have been for years trying to cater to the West. And that's the difference between Chinese games and Japanese games, that Chinese games don't fold. They just go and, hey, here's our culture, like, if you enjoy it, cool, if you're not, that's okay too. Like, they don't really care, and that's the beauty of it, because we're starting to learn more, and that's why I love this game so deeply. Because it actually teaches me something, rather than just trying to indoctrinate me.
Because Chinese developers are not accountable to Western woke journalists. They're not accountable to a cancel campaign on Twitter. They're just simply going to make whatever video game they want.
I'm kind of hiding
him. If you don't like it, you can suck a fucking lemon. That's it. And so that's the reason why journalists rate these games so negatively. That's the reason why, and you'll see this happen probably with Tides of Annihilation. You'll see this happen.
Absolutely.
You saw this happen with Stellar Blade. You saw this happen, and I know that's Korean, but like in general, I think it's Korea and China. I think it will also be India.
You're gonna see it with Crimson Desert as well.
Any region and any company that doesn't kowtow to the way that they view things and the way that they see things, I bet Lords of the Fallen 2 will also be rated negatively because they have attractive women characters in them. Ooh. The fact is that these companies are parasites. They are parasites. They are against you, the player, and their job is to make your video games bad. That's what they want to do. They want to make your video games garbage, and the people that don't listen to them, they will lie about, smear, and misrepresent.
Well, then we shouldn't just purchase their products. They would crumble on their own. We've seen it with numerous companies in the past, and we're gonna see it again. I mean, Ubisoft is just failing, right? I think they're about to shut down or something. It's crazy. Just don't capitulate to their demands, and you'll do just fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our vote that matters, because we vote with our wallets, and if we don't give them a dime, then they're just going to crumble. Who cares?
Because if a free game can run better and offer more freedom than a $70 AAA product, it threatens the entire business model. If a free becomes better than premium, the premium market collapses. Now let's be real, Where Winds Meet is messy, it is janky, it throws way too much at you all at once, it lacks the streamlined polish of a Sony first-party title, but in an industry full of interactive movies that basically play themselves, players are desperate for agency. They want a game that respects them enough to let them fall, to let them learn. They want friction because friction means they are actually interacting with something.
Not gonna lie, I actually love those cinematics in combat. I think they're dope. I don't know. I love them personally.
It is creating a weird dynamic where a bad review from a major outlet is actually starting to look like a marketing asset. It is the inverse scale. If they hate it, it is probably interesting. If a critic complains a game is too hard or too complex, players now hear this game has depth. So I want to ask you, do you think this is just a temporary trend, or have we permanently passed the point of no return for traditional game criticism? Let me know.
No, we passed it a long time ago. It's just that companies don't really care because they get their funding somewhere. I don't know how. But yeah, they keep pumping that garbage. Regardless, very good video. Very good video. I'm going to leave a link in the description. You guys can watch it for yourself. Obviously, give him a like. Phenomenal video. I pretty much said all that I had to. But it just feels so bad that IGN is keep smearing this game up. It's just so annoying, man, because I hate it when good games are being clowned upon. And this is objectively a very good game. I can't believe that it is free, and I'm so glad that I'm enjoying spending time in it every single day. You know what? It is what it is, man. But, maybe, you know, maybe just would continue to be funny to laugh at IGN, and that's pretty much it. I guess that's all we have left to do. We do the same with Blizzard, and we're just gonna keep doing it with all of these Western companies. They think they know better than us.